Good morning. I'm Erica Reed. I'm with the Center for Musical Arts, and one of my favorite parts of my job is talking to the center faculty and to learn a little bit about them, learn their personality, learn their teaching philosophy. Today I'm with Michael Pordesimo. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Good. And I believe you are one of our incoming members of faculty. Can you tell me a little bit about how you landed with the Center for Musical Arts?
Yeah. I currently teach at Dana V Music as well, and I'm one of my coworkers there, Brian Hickman, actually had like mentioned that they had an opening over at the Center for Musical Arts. And then he had held like a piano recital there, and had asked me to play there as like a guest. And so that's actually how I got to meet Kathy and everyone before like I'd even like considered even starting to teach there. So it all kind of just like flowed really well into me becoming a teacher there. So
I
yeah,
see. We love Brian Hickman. I got to talk to him for a faculty interview as well, and I love the guy.
yeah, no, he's great. I love hanging out with him.
Now, Brian teaches piano, but I believe you teach violin. Is that correct?
Yes, so I teach both violin and viola actually.
Okay. And how did you know that strings were going to be your instrument? This is one of my favorite questions because everybody has a different way that they found that this was their instrument. How did you come to the violin and the viola?
So my journey into finding the violin viola is very boring, if we're being honest. I was a Suzuki child first off, so that's how I was brought up. And so my parents pretty much just like made forced me to start when I was 3 years old. My sister's 8 years older than I am, and she also played violin. So like before I even like could think about it, they're like, "Here's a violin, you're gonna do it." So
Got it. So tell me a little bit about your teaching philosophy. Does it involve being forced to play an instrument?
yeah. I mean, obviously, like, I ended up enjoying it and made a career out of it. But no, like, and honestly, I normally like caution against starting kids as young as 3. You can do it, but personally, like, I feel like a lot of that comes down to, how driven are your parents or like committed to, helping their student learn. In terms of like my teaching philosophy, it kind of goes with like one of something else, but like I really want students to eventually become their own teachers. I want them to become like feel very comfortable being a musician and just being like having some music in front of them and maybe not necessarily know exactly how to like approach it, but they have like tools or and like other resources to figure out how can I learn this or how can I practice this. So that's ultimately my goal with all of my students. I just want them to become their own teachers. Like sure, I want to see them, like I love hanging out with them, but ultimately I want them to be, good, independent, like free thinking musicians.
Yeah. So I do want to say that the center offers classes for very young students, starting at like 18 months, where you're just exploring music. So if you are somebody looking to introduce your very young child to music without it being structured lessons, we do have some really fun, engaging options there that you can do like with children with caregivers. But I do want to ask more about because your bio really pushes the idea of promoting independence and free thinking. How did you come about that teaching philosophy? Why did it become important to you that students would become their own teacher? I really love the way you worded that.
It actually came from my own teacher that I had in high school. Her name was Selena Baldry. I originally met her actually at a Suzuki camp when I was like in fourth grade. She was like my technique teacher, and like it's funny that I chose her to be my instructor because she was the teacher who made me the most miserable the entire time I was at camp. I remember leaving like each one of her classes during that I think 2 3 week period, feeling like I was like a terrible violinist because I couldn't handle a lot of her things, but it also really made me want to like get better. And so eventually later on, I had moved and like she is maybe like 2 3 hours away from where I'd lived. And so like I commuted every weekend to like go take lessons from her. But anyway, back to our original point. So she like her goal for me was always to give me like as many tools as I could to figure out how to play like different things of music. And it was never she never necessarily like necessarily said, you have to play this piece because it's going to teach us this or this. It would be like, if I picked something really hard, she's like, all right, this is like, we're going to learn this. And then we're going to figure out how are we going to learn this. So in terms of like, how do we practice these different sections? Or there's a new technique that I had to learn. And so how can I learn this? What are things that I need to do in order to make this happen? And so that really just struck a chord with me because me as a musician, I feel really comfortable in general looking at things all because of the things that she showed me, and she made me feel very confident in myself as a musician. So I really enjoyed that philosophy that she passed on to me, and so I try to pass that on to my students as well.
Wonderful. And if I come to one of your lessons and I have a piece of music I just love, will I have the option to sort of choose what I'm studying, or do you have like a pretty concrete path that you try to follow?
I have some like, I guess let's say like highlights that I definitely like try to hit in general.
Yeah.
In terms of like, so for like string instruments in general, like I want my kids to be able to like, like shift or like eventually like do vibrato or like other things is more just building habits, like making sure that we use full bows or a posture. But like those are all things that we can kind of in general hit depending like,
Mm.
like depending on what piece of music we're playing. So like if I like a student comes in with like a piece of music they want to learn, normally I'm up for it as long as it's not like something like crazy, like like way out there. I'll just be like, okay, sure, we'll try it. And if like we're working on it for a little bit and it's still not coming together, I'll be like, let's come back to this later when we feel a little more confident in our stuff. But I never just outright say no for the most part.
It sounds like a really nice blend of the foundation that we need as musicians, as well as that independence and creativity. It sounds like you're really striking that balance.
Yeah, exactly. Something, I guess I grew up, I was trained primarily as like a classical musician for the most part. Like as I said earlier, like I was a Suzuki child, so I just went all the way, like I went up to like book seven, and I think I eventually told my teacher, I was like, I want to do something else. But that something else still was more classical stuff.
Yeah.
What really got me into like, trying to play other types of music was actually when I was in college. I like out of the blue was like, I was looking for an elective to take, and there was like this like intro to like jazz improvisation, and I was like, I want to learn how to improvise. That'll be cool. And so I did. I was the only string instrument. I think, well, no, there's a bassist. That was about it.
Oh,
Everybody else
wow.
was like guitar or like brass or something like that. But like it taught me so much, even though I couldn't, I can't say that I'm still like a great improviser, but like, I learned how to read off of lead sheets. I had to learn like my jazz scales. Like it really opened like new doors for me because like I was like, wow, I've been playing classical this whole time. And like, that's fun. That's great. And like on a technical like level, technically more interesting. But it's really fun just to like, diversify. Like for example, I'm now one of my friends was hosting like a singer-songwriter like festival like for
Mm.
fun. And so I joined that and like all I did was just play piano and write songs about my cats. And I was like, I don't do this on a professional level, but this is fun. So, but and also I guess the reason I like mentioned this is because I think it's important for students, to be more diverse. Like I want them to experience the joy I found in like playing other types of music sooner than I did. Because I was like 21, 22 by the time I was starting to break out of classical. So I like, for example, I have another student who like sometimes we would do like an exercise where we would roll dice. And so it'd be like, we can only play these 3 or 4 notes. And then we'd be like, all right, so let's see what songs can we come up using these. And like we would record them. And sometimes they're silly, but it was really fun. Or I'd play a backing track for them while they like just tried to make something up. But I feel like, as they, keep trying, it also helps to bring up their confidence as like a musician because, we don't know how it's going to turn out, but as long as you do your best, like, it'll be okay. So
Oh,
I think it's fun to, do that with my students. Just, go in other directions than just the standard like classical way, so to speak.
Michael, I love to hear that. I love to hear, I mean, this is also supposed to be fun. We we learn the foundations, especially if we're wanting to pursue music, but there should be an element of self-expression and fun. And in these interviews, when I've talked to other instructors who are sort of multi-instrumentalists, a lot of times they'll say, this is my instrument I just mess around with. This is not the one I'm really excellent at. This is the
I
one that's
mean,
just
that's
fun. And
fair.
the pressure is off a little bit. And this is the one I just make some funny tunes with when I need a break from studying music. And I think that's another balance you're striking that's very important for students.
Yeah, exactly. Like I enjoy telling my students about the weird things that I do sometimes. So like for example, like I think at one of those showcases, I think I played violin, I played viola, I played mandolin, and I played piano, and I sang all in the same thing. And
Yeah.
then like I introduced myself. I was like, oh, I play all of these at a very toy instrument level. It's like that Jimmy
Yes.
Kimmel skit where they all play like toy instruments. So that's what I jokingly like told everybody as I was performing. Because like I tell people all the time, I'm like, yeah, I got like a C in piano methods. I'm not a pianist at all. But it's been fun just to do it, like try for it anyway. And the mandolin's the same thing. I just randomly saw one on Facebook Marketplace and I was like, I could play that maybe. And so
Yeah.
I got one, and I can definitely say I'm not a professional and could not play professionally, but it's fun. So
I think those
yeah.
are the things that keep you going. I mean, studying anything that you're passionate about is difficult because as you're getting up right to the level of your capability, and it's exhausting, it's hard work. And I think in order to keep at it, you've got to find those moments of fun. Um, and it just sounds like you really know how to do that.
It took a while to get there, though, I will say. Like, I actually ended up taking a break from music for a little bit, and I ended up actually going to the healthcare field, ironically. Yeah, so I ended up being like a CNA for a year, and like it was very tough work. But like, I was just so burnt out on music. I was like, I don't want to teach anymore. Like, I don't feel like this is gonna work out for me. And then like, my best friend Rebecca, she actually like dragged me back out of what I call my music retirement. My retirement at the ripe age of 28. But anyway, she was like, you could like play for my church or something. And I was like, oh, I could use the extra money, so I guess I'll do it. And so that kind of like,
Mhm.
I guess spread into me like starting to teach again and then starting to get really involved and like building a studio again and whatnot. So I definitely blame her for getting me back into music.
Well, we thank her for that. Yeah, I think it's probably important for our students to hear that because we all hit that roadblock from time to time. And I don't think a break is wrong. I'm really glad you came back to it. And it sounds like as a result, you found more ways to bring fun and creativity and things into it. And like you said earlier, introducing some of these concepts to your students earlier than you came across them, earlier than you came across improvisation and things like that, so that maybe they never hit that wall completely, even though things do get difficult.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I feel like as a result of that break, I came to appreciate my music a lot more. And like you said, I've been able to find more avenues to like, just continue to make it fun for myself. So.
Wonderful. So what are you doing when you're not teaching or listening to music? I know there's two cats running around in your house.
Yes, I don't know where they are, but
Where's
yeah, so
Delilah?
she is somewhere in my room here. But actually, so I have I live with four cats actually. We have four cats and two dogs technically in the same house.
Oh my
So
gosh,
it's a
okay.
big zoo. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, in my free time, I just like watching TV. I play Magic the Gathering a lot. So whenever I meet new people, my first thing I ask them is like, "Do you play Magic?" So I have one student actually that I teach right now, and like I know I made his lessons in hours, even though they're only 45 minutes, so I could spend that first 15 minutes playing Magic with him.
Oh,
Uh, so I feel guilty though because I win most of the time, but still, it's fun.
he's got to learn.
So exactly. The teacher's got to school the kid. Anyway, but yeah, so I play Magic. I really like building model kits. I think I put that in my bio. I really just enjoy building things. Actually, fun. I used to work at the Lego store like forever ago, and like that was honestly my favorite like fun job. Like we got 50% off like Legos, and so I would just always build Legos all the time.
You're
But for a
speaking
hot
my language now.
for a hot minute, when I was teaching at another school, I would always bring in Legos as like a reward or something because it was so cheap for me. And so slowly, but like everybody knew me as like the Lego teacher, even like the kids
Oh,
who weren't my students. And so I would just have kids walk up to me and be like, "Do you have anything?" I was like, "No," but like I would just have kids always asking me for Legos. So.
I love this. So, Michael, it has been lovely to talk to you. Is there anything else that you think it would be important for prospective students to know about you or the way you teach? I did want to ask, what age range do you teach? Do you teach students of all ages?
Yes, actually, yeah. Currently my youngest student I think is like 5 years old, and then I have like a few adult students, so as old as you want to be to start learning. It's
Wonderful.
never too late. Yeah. And I feel like there's always stuff you can learn from like starting to learn an instrument. Like for example, I have like one adult student who's always like so rough on themselves. And I'm like, you just have to be like kind to yourself, like you're very like I would always tell them like, they're very brave for, wanting to begin a new instrument. And like we all have to start somewhere and it's okay to make those mistakes as we're learning, right? Because like that's how you learn. And they're always like so hard and nervous, but I'm like, you know what? Like not everybody can say that, they're learning a new instrument and, getting up and performing in front of people. So I think it's always, I guess with learning from me, I think it's important just to know that, I'll always try to be as supportive as I can while being realistic. But in general, I will always find a way to, help my students succeed and find ways to enjoy themselves.
Well, Michael Pordesimo, it was an absolute joy to talk with you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was wonderful. You have a good one.
You too.